The year is 2014. You are standing in a genetics laboratory at the University of Chicago. It is late, most of the building is dark. A researcher named Erica von Mutius is staring at a printout she has read 17 times. The numbers are not wrong. She has checked them. Her team has checked them. The equipment has been recalibrated twice. The data says that a group of children living in rural Indiana have immune systems that look nothing like those of any other children in the industrialized world. Not better in a minor way, not a statistical footnote. Fundamentally, structurally, differently built, as if they developed inside a completely different biological reality than every other child in the modern Western world. Von Mutius puts down the printout. She looks out the window at the Chicago skyline. And she asks a question that will take years of additional research to even partially answer. What do these children have that everyone else lost? The answer is not a gene, it is not a drug, it is not a supplement or a protocol or a medical intervention of any kind. The answer is a lifestyle. Specifically, a lifestyle that hasn't changed in 300 years, a lifestyle that looks in almost every measurable biological detail like the lifestyle of a human being living 10,000 years ago. The Amish didn't set out to preserve ancient human biology. They were trying to preserve their faith. They were trying to stay close to God, to community, to simplicity, but in doing so, they accidentally preserved something science is only now beginning to understand. Not one thing, 10 things. And some of them may change everything we think we know about why modern humans are getting sicker while living longer. Let's go. Number 10. The microbial world. The year is 1991. You are in a barn in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It is 5 in the morning. The air smells of hay and soil and animals. A 4-year-old Amish child walks barefoot across the barn floor, pats the nose of a horse, picks up a handful of soil, and drops it. She does this every morning. She has done this every morning since she could walk. She doesn't know it. Her parents don't know it. No one in her community has any framework for understanding it, but she is receiving a biological education that no modern medical institution has yet figured out how to replicate. Here's where it gets strange. In 2016, a research team led by von Mutius published a landmark paper in the journal Science. They had collected dust from Amish homes in Indiana and Hutterite homes in South Dakota. The Hutterites are a similar religious community, genetically close to the Amish, living comparable lives in comparable isolation. The key difference is their farms. Hutterite farms are industrialized, children don't play in barns, animals are kept in separate facilities. The team exposed laboratory mice to both dust samples. Mice bred to develop asthma-like inflammation. The mice exposed to Amish dust remained healthy. The mice exposed to Hutterite dust developed inflammation as predicted. Same mice, same genetics, same laboratory conditions, different dust. The protection was not coming from any single organism. It was coming from the sheer biological diversity of the microbial ecosystem in Amish barn dust, an ecosystem that has been present in human environments for hundreds of thousands of years, before sealed houses, before industrial farming, before antibiotics. The Amish barn is not a primitive place. It is, biologically speaking, a restoration of the environment the human immune system was built to develop inside, and they preserved it without knowing it existed. But the microbial world is only the first thing they kept. The next one is older, and the science behind it is even stranger. Number 9. The movement pattern. The year is 2008. You are following an Amish farmer named David through a single day in Holmes County, Ohio. He wakes before sunrise. He feeds animals. He repairs a fence. He plows a field. He builds a section of wall, he harvests, he walks. By the time David sits down for dinner, a research-grade accelerometer strapped to his wrist has recorded something extraordinary. 18,000 steps, not on a treadmill, not in a gym, not in a dedicated exercise window carved out of a sedentary day. 18,000 steps woven continuously through the fabric of a working life. Here's where it gets strange. In 2004, a team of researchers from the University of Tennessee published a study in the journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. They had equipped Amish men and women with pedometers and tracked their daily movement for a week. Amish men averaged 18,425 steps per day. Amish women averaged 14,196. Obesity rates in the community were 4%. In the surrounding non-Amish population of the same region, obesity rates were 31%. But the data that genuinely startled the research team wasn't the step count. It was the pattern. The Amish didn't exercise. They moved continuously, in short, frequent bursts of physical activity distributed across every waking hour. Loading hay, walking between fields, carrying equipment, splitting wood. Researchers studying ancestral human movement patterns from hunter-gatherer populations have found an almost identical signature, not sustained aerobic exercise, not resistance training sessions, but constant, varied, low to moderate intensity movement woven continuously through the day. The modern fitness industry was built on the assumption that you could compress necessary movement into a 60-minute window and spend the rest of the day sitting. The Amish never made that assumption. Neither did any human being for the first 300,000 years of our species' existence, and the data says the Amish body is what happens when you never stop moving the way humans were built to move, but the movement pattern is only the surface. What it does to the body underneath is a different story entirely. Number 8. The sleep architecture. The year is 2017. You are in a sleep research facility in Cologne, Germany. A chronobiologist named Till Ronenberg has just finished analyzing data from a study unlike any he has conducted before. His team has spent months in Amish communities in the American Midwest measuring something called social jet lag, the gap between when the body wants to sleep and when modern life forces it to sleep. In the general population, social jet lag averages between 1 and 2 hours. In the Amish communities, it is almost 0. Ronenberg sits with that number for a long time. Here's where it gets strange. The Amish have no electric lighting. When darkness falls, their world goes dark. When the sun rises, they rise with it. Their circadian systems receive the same unbroken light signals that governed human sleep for hundreds of thousands of years. Modern humans live in a world of perpetual artificial twilight, screens, streetlights, LED ceiling fixtures. The human brain, receiving blue light wavelength after sunset, suppresses melatonin production and delays the circadian clock by an average of 2 to 3 hours every night. 2 to 3 hours every night for years. Researchers studying the health consequences of chronic circadian disruption have found elevated rates of obesity, cardiovascular disease, depression, metabolic disorder, and certain cancers in populations with the highest levels of artificial light exposure after dark. The Amish have none of this. Their sleep is deep, their circadian rhythms are accurate, their melatonin production is uninterrupted, their bodies move through the full architecture of restorative sleep that human biology requires, not because of any health intervention, not because of any supplement, because they never change the lighting. And melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. Research published in the journal Antioxidants and Redox Signaling in 2017 confirmed that melatonin functions as a direct immune regulator, an antioxidant, and a suppressor of certain tumor growth pathways. The Amish accidentally preserved the nightly biological reset that modern humans have been unknowingly turning off for 100 years. But what happens during those hours of uninterrupted darkness is connected to something even deeper, something that has to do with food. Number 7. The seasonal diet. The year is 2019. You are in a farmhouse kitchen in Elkhart County, Indiana. It is October. An Amish woman named Ruth is preserving the last of the autumn harvest. Jars of pickled vegetables line every shelf. Dried herbs hang from the ceiling beams. The root cellar below the kitchen is full. Ruth has never heard of the microbiome. She has never read a paper on polyphenols or fermentation science or short-chain fatty acids. But what she is doing in this kitchen is something that modern nutritional science has spent decades trying to understand and replicate. Here's where it gets strange. The Amish diet rotates with the seasons. Spring brings fresh greens and early vegetables. Summer brings fruit, fresh produce, and dairy at its most nutrient-dense. Autumn brings the harvest. Winter draws down the preserved and fermented stores. This is not a choice. It is a structural feature of a farming life without industrial food supply chains. And researchers studying the gut microbiome have found that seasonal dietary variation dramatically increases microbial diversity. A 2015 study published in Science found that the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer populations on Earth, show gut microbiome diversity that shifts significantly between wet and dry seasons as their food sources change. This seasonal variation appears to maintain microbial species that disappear entirely from industrialized guts living on year-round uniform diets. Modern humans eat the same foods in January as they do in July. The same strawberries shipped from a greenhouse in Spain. The same chicken processed in an industrial facility on a different continent. The gut microbiome, which evolved alongside 10,000 years of seasonal dietary variation, receives no seasonal signal at all. The Amish preserved the signal, and their fermented foods deserve a separate mention. Kimchi in Korea, kefir in Eastern Europe, sauerkraut in Germany, all fermented preservation methods developed independently across cultures as a survival technology. Ruth's preserved vegetables contain naturally occurring probiotic bacteria that a commercial supplement industry now charges significant money to deliver in capsule form. She produces them as a byproduct of not wasting food. But the next thing the Amish preserved is stranger than diet. Stranger than sleep. It reaches into something the modern world has almost completely forgotten exists. Number 6. The community immune system. The year is 2020. You are in a small Amish community in southern Ohio. A global pandemic is reshaping the world around them. Governments are closing borders. Cities are locking down. Billions of people are isolating inside individual households, separated from every social connection they have. The Amish community is holding church. They hold church the following week as well. And the week after that, then something happened. Researchers from Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, conducted a serology study of the Amish community in Holmes County. Published in 2021, the study found that by the summer of 2020, approximately 90% of the community showed antibodies to the COVID-19 virus. The community had achieved what epidemiologists estimated was natural herd immunity within a matter of months. Their hospitalization rate was a fraction of the surrounding population. Their mortality rate was dramatically lower than national averages. The research team published cautiously. The data was controversial, but the numbers were the numbers. Here's where it gets strange. The explanation may not be primarily about COVID at all. The Amish community had been building and maintaining a shared immune landscape for generations. Constant close contact, regular communal gatherings, physical proximity to the same microbial environment, children raised in the same barns, eating from the same gardens, breathing the same air. Ancient human communities lived this way. They had to. The band structure of hunter-gatherer populations meant constant intimate contact with the same group of 50 to 150 individuals across entire lifetimes. Researchers studying the immune profiles of populations with high levels of social contact have found evidence suggesting that community-level immune function operates differently from isolated individual immune function. The shared microbial landscape of a close community appears to calibrate immune responses across the group in ways that individual isolation cannot replicate. Modern humans have been steadily increasing social isolation for decades. Smaller households, more time alone, digital interaction replacing physical proximity. The Amish preserved the ancient community immune structure that humans evolved inside, and no public health authority in the world has yet figured out how to bottle it. But what happens inside the Amish body across a lifetime reveals something even more extraordinary. Number 5. The stress architecture. The year is 2011. You are in a laboratory at Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center. A research team has just finished analyzing cortisol profiles from a sample of Amish adults. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone. In modern populations, chronic elevated cortisol is associated with cardiovascular disease, immune suppression, cognitive decline, and accelerated aging. The Amish profiles look different, not absent stress. The Amish experience illness, grief, loss, hard winters, crop failure, and the full weight of difficult lives. But the stress is acute. It rises, it resolves. The cortisol system returns to baseline. Here's where it gets strange. Modern humans experience a fundamentally different stress pattern. Chronic, low-grade, unresolvable stress. Financial anxiety that persists for years. Social comparison conducted continuously through digital platforms. Career pressure with no clear endpoint. Information overload with no off switch. The human stress response was built for acute threats. A predator, a flood, a conflict. The threat appears, the body mobilizes, the threat resolves, the system recovers. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was the pattern. The Amish stress pattern still resembles it. Hard physical work with a clear beginning and end. Community problems addressed communally and resolved within the community. Grief processed through immediate, physically present social support. No financial markets to watch. No social media metrics to monitor. No 24-hour news cycle to absorb. Researchers studying the health consequences of chronic cortisol elevation have found it suppresses the innate immune system, promotes inflammatory pathways, accelerates cellular aging as measured by telomere length, and is directly associated with the development of depressive disorders. The Amish preserved what researchers now call a resolved stress architecture, the pattern of stress and recovery that the human nervous system was designed to cycle through. And somewhere in that pattern lies an answer to a question that is bankrupting healthcare systems across the industrialized world. Why is everyone so sick when they are living so long? But the answer to that question requires understanding something the Amish preserved that almost nobody is talking about. Number 4, the purpose structure. The year is 2013. You are in Shipshewana, Indiana. An 81-year-old Amish man named Eli is building a cabinet. His hands are precise. His posture is upright, his eyes are clear. He has been building things his entire adult life. He intends to keep building things until he cannot. There is no retirement date. There is no pension cliff. There is no moment at which Eli will stop being useful and begin waiting. Here's where it gets strange. In 2014, a research team at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago published a landmark study in the journal Psychological Science. Led by researcher Patricia Boyle, the study tracked more than 1,400 older adults over 7 years and found that those with a strong sense of purpose in life showed dramatically lower rates of cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and cardiovascular events. Those with the highest purpose scores were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. The protective effect was independent of depression, neuroticism, and social connections. Purpose itself was the variable. Ancient human communities had no retirement age, no moment at which an individual stopped contributing and became economically inactive. Elders were knowledge holders, craftspeople, caregivers, teachers. Their role within the community continued until their bodies could no longer perform it. Modern Western culture invented retirement in 1889 when Otto von Bismarck established the German state pension at age 70 in a population where most people died before 65. The concept of a defined endpoint to productive life is less than 150 years old. The Amish never adopted it. Eli will build cabinets until he cannot hold the tools. His brain, maintained by decades of skilled purposeful work and the knowledge that it is needed and valued, will remain sharp for years that statistical models of cognitive decline cannot easily explain. And what Eli's brain looks like at 81 is connected to something the Amish preserved that medical science is only now beginning to quantify. Number 3, the intergenerational knowledge system. The year is 1693. You are in the canton of Bern, Switzerland. A 29-year-old Mennonite minister named Jacob Amann is standing before a congregation that is about to fracture. Amann has become convinced that the church has drifted, that the old ways, the ways of simplicity and separation and close community, are being abandoned in favor of assimilation with the modern world around them. He will not allow it. The split he causes will eventually send his followers across the Atlantic to Pennsylvania, to Ohio, to Indiana, to the flat farmlands of the American Midwest where their descendants still live today. He did not know he was making a decision about human biology. He thought he was making a decision about God. Here's where it gets strange. The knowledge systems that the Amish preserved as a result of Ammon's 1693 decision are not just religious, they are biological, agricultural, medical, craft-based. In an Amish community, a 70-year-old grandfather teaches his 12-year-old grandson to build a barn the same way barns have been built for 3 centuries. A grandmother teaches her granddaughter to preserve food the same way food has been preserved for generations. This is not nostalgia. It is a living intergenerational knowledge transfer that maintains practices whose health benefits were not understood when they were developed. Research on intergenerational community structures published by developmental psychologist Yori Bronfenbrenner at Cornell University identified that children raised in close contact with grandparents and extended family showed dramatically better emotional regulation, lower rates of behavioral disorders, and stronger social cognition than children raised in nuclear family isolation. The ancient human family structure was not nuclear. It was extended, multi-generational. The grandparent hypothesis, first proposed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah, suggests that the presence and active involvement of post-reproductive females in child-rearing was so beneficial to human survival that it drove the evolution of extended human lifespan itself. We evolved to live in multi-generational communities. The Amish never stopped, and the knowledge they have been transmitting across generations for 3 centuries contains something that no scientific institution has yet fully cataloged. Medical researchers who have spent time in Amish communities consistently report discovering practices, herbal preparations, dietary habits, and physical routines whose biological benefits could not have been known to the people who developed them. Someone learned these things. Someone passed them on, generation to generation, without knowing why they worked, only that they did. But the next thing the Amish preserved is the one that may be the most important of all. Number 2, the land relationship. The year is 2006. You are in an Amish field in Geauga County, Ohio. A farmer named Samuel is turning soil with a horse-drawn plow. The soil turns dark and rich. Earthworms surface briefly and disappear. Samuel's family has farmed this same land for 4 generations. He knows this soil the way a physician knows a patient. Here's where it gets strange. In 2007, a microbiologist named Graham Rook at University College London published a paper proposing what he called the Old Friends hypothesis, an extension of the hygiene hypothesis that argued the specific organisms the human immune system learned to tolerate were not random pathogens but specific microbes that humans had been living alongside for millions of years. Soil bacteria, organisms associated with animals, the microbes of streams and forests and farmland, specifically the kind of organisms encountered by people who spend their lives in close daily contact with the same piece of land. Rook identified one organism in particular, Mycobacterium vaccae, a soil bacterium found in healthy, biologically rich agricultural soil. Research subsequent to Rook's paper found that exposure to Mycobacterium vaccae stimulated serotonin production in the brain, reduced anxiety-like behavior in animal studies, and appeared to suppress inflammatory immune responses. A bacterium in the soil, producing effects in the human brain and immune system that pharmaceutical companies are currently attempting to replicate in clinical trials. Samuel encounters Mycobacterium vaccae every time he turns his soil. He has been encountering it every year of his working life. His father encountered it, his grandfather encountered it, his great-grandfather encountered it when they first broke this ground 4 generations ago. Modern humans encounter it almost never. Sealed houses, paved surfaces, manicured lawns treated with herbicides that eliminate the biological richness of soil ecosystems. The relationship between humans and the living soil they farmed for 10,000 years produced a biological exchange that researchers are only beginning to map. The Amish maintained that relationship, and the organism in the soil that may be regulating their mood, their immunity, and their inflammatory response is still there, still waiting in every field Samuel turns, still doing something that no one fully understands yet. But the final thing the Amish preserved is the one that brings all of it together, the one that makes researchers sit with the data for a long time before they speak. Number 1, the biological baseline. The year is 2023. You are in a conference room at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. A presentation is being given on Amish health data compiled across 15 years of research from 6 independent university research programs: Johns Hopkins, Ohio State, University of Chicago, University of Arizona, Nationwide Children's Hospital, Rush University. The data is displayed on a screen. Asthma rates, cancer incidence, cardiovascular markers, immune profiles, cortisol levels, circadian rhythm accuracy, cognitive decline trajectories, microbiome diversity scores. Across every single metric, the Amish numbers sit outside the normal range for industrialized populations, not slightly outside, dramatically, consistently, inexplicably outside. Then something happened. A researcher at the back of the room asked a question that no one had formally posed before. Not in a published paper, not in a grant application, not in any official scientific document. What if the Amish are not the anomaly? What if we are? Here's where it gets strange. Every metric that makes the Amish unusual in the context of modern industrialized populations makes them entirely normal in the context of pre-industrial human populations. Their immune profiles match archaeological reconstructions of pre-modern immune function. Their microbiome diversity approaches what researchers find in the last remaining hunter-gatherer populations. Their movement patterns, sleep architecture, stress profiles, and community structures are consistent with human biological baselines established over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. The Amish are not exceptional. They are, in the most precise scientific sense of the term, normal. It is the rest of the industrialized world that has deviated, and this is where everything changes. Because if the Amish represent the biological baseline and the modern world represents the deviation, then the question medicine has been asking for a century is the wrong question. Modern medicine asks, how do we treat the diseases of civilization? The Amish data suggests the actual question is, why did we create the conditions for those diseases in the first place? The answer is not simple. It is not a single cause. It is the simultaneous removal of 10 ancient biological conditions that the human body relied on for its proper function: microbial diversity, continuous movement, uninterrupted sleep governed by natural light, seasonal dietary variation, community immune calibration, resolved stress architecture. Purposeful lifelong contribution, intergenerational knowledge transmission, sustained land relationship, and the biological baseline that emerges when all 10 are present simultaneously. The Amish preserved all 10, not because they understood them, not because they were trying to optimize human health outcomes, but because they were trying to stay close to something they believed was sacred, and in doing so, they became the most important living experiment in human biology that the modern world has ever had access to. Jacob Ammon stood before his congregation in 1693 and made a decision. He thought he was choosing God over modernity. He could not have known he was also choosing a biological reality over a civilizational mistake. The Amish communities of rural Indiana and Ohio and Pennsylvania wake up every morning and go to their barns. The children walk barefoot across the barn floor. The farmers turn the same soil their great-grandfathers turned. The kitchens preserve the same foods the same way they have been preserved for 3 centuries. And somewhere in the dust of those barns, in the soil of those fields, in the darkness of those candlelit winter evenings, something ancient is still intact. Something the rest of the world quietly dismantled without realizing what it was losing. The Amish did not discover a secret. They simply never forgot something the rest of us decided we no longer needed. The question that remains open is not whether they were right. The question that remains open is whether we can find our way back.